in your family you don't have someone that's actually a victim to mental illness or has been diagnosed to it, it's a lot harder to understand, um, which I don't actually blame, but I think there's less education, or there used to be less education. Now there's more awareness, but I still think that it's a lot hard. It's a very hard concept to grasp because it's not visible, and yeah.
So, generally, what do you think has more influence in mental illness, a family situation, social life, or work?
Okay, so I think all three of them obviously contribute to it. I think the most, or I should say the worst, the one that me personally um, deteriorates me the most is probably, I would say family, simply because I live in a family with someone that's suffering from a mental illness, and also it affects everyone else in the family, not just me. So that makes all of us cranky towards each other, and it's really hard.
Now we are going to talk to a counsellor who is going to give his thoughts through our professional and religious aspect.
I am a counsellor and a therapist from both ends of the spectrum, one religious and one non-religious, and everything in between. I've been doing it for about 6 years now.
So, Khalil, why do you think it's hard for people to speak to their own parents about the problems that they face?
So with many clients, and like most people, I think it's you automatically assume that your parents won't be able to relate to you or resonate with whatever you say. For example, if you say certain concepts that have changed over time, certain words, the way we define, the way we see society is very different now. Some people feel like their parents won't understand them, so there's no point in them even going to them in the first place. And some people do try to talk to their parents, and they just obviously smack them back down, or like they say, look, that's not really important right now. Your studies are more important. They feel like they won't be able to fully get a true understanding, so what's the point of doing it in the first place?
So why do you feel like the past generation do not take mental issues seriously?
I think one, there was not that much awareness about it. So like as society progresses, as we move on with time and society moves on, I think we start to see certain things that were issues and that things that we need to address. Whereas back then there wasn't such things like, for example, social media or more jobs or stress and pressures. And so a lot of people didn't really recognize mental health, even though it still always has existed in history in the past before. It's just obviously with time now we kind of put meanings and definitions on it.
So if somebody came to you and they said they're suffering from depression, what would your first advice be to them?
My first advice or my first question to them or to anyone with anything that they come to me with is define it. Like, explain to me why you think you have it. What does it mean to you? What does the word mean to you? How do you understand it? How do you see it? How does it affect you?
So has technology changed the way people think and go about depression?
Definitely, 100%. I think technology has created a space where it can increase and decrease whether it be well-being or mental health. I think some increases, some positives of it have been, people can be more understanding, more information can be out because we live in an information age. I think some of the down points of it is people start to measure themselves against other people. So if my favorite celebrity has depression, I'm going to be like, oh, he has symptoms A, B, and C, therefore I have depression. Like, we start comparing ourselves, which is not good at all.
So as for now, do you feel religion has a huge impact in mental state?
I think religion does have a huge impact. There was one study done very recently that said that those who do believe in some type of higher power other than themselves are less likely to have mental health problems. I think religion, like many other things, is a coping mechanism, and for most people, it actually is the most successful coping mechanism for them when they have mental health issues.
Do you feel like depression can be caused by genetics or like what they do in their daily lives?
Yes, 100%. So there's different types of like depression. For example, there's spiritual, so like your actual how at peace you are with yourself or like the world around you. One is mental, depending on what you do as a human being, what you digest, what you see, what you listen to. That can affect you in a good or bad way. And then the last one is physical. So yeah, you can be born with certain hormonal imbalances, which actually induces or reduces your depression rate.
Priya, who is a final year maths student in Leeds, it gives us stories about her earlier life and how she had to adapt to university away from home.
Do you feel like there's an increase in mental health issues among students who are living away from home?
Oh, definitely. I think the fact that students are living away from home, they are generally a lot more homesick. And I think that plays a massive part because it's the first time a lot of these young people are responsible for themselves and they don't have their parents to fall back on. And it's a part of growing up, I guess, but I think it takes its toll on a lot more people than others. But paired with that is the university work and the university stress that a degree comes with. And for me personally, the piles of stress and manic panic like before deadlines and things like that all contribute to anxiety, especially for me. I have been a carer for my mum during my A-levels, and so when I did go to university, this was my first time that I was responsible for myself and not for another person. So a lot of my anxiety and depression kicked in my first year at university, as it was the first time I had to focus on myself and look after myself, as I was looking after another person before that. So coming to terms with that and dealing with all that stuff on my own, I had no choice. I couldn't ignore it.
So do you feel like there's an improvement when it comes to mental issues involving the past generations?
So, particularly in my family, I'm from an Indian background. Mental health has not, as most of my family were raised in India, mental health hasn't been seen as a problem. It's not a massive issue, and it's very, very much looked over. I've had many members of my extended family who have committed suicide due to being unable to speak about their mental health problems and having to suffer alone. So yeah, I've dealt with many experiences where my mental health has been overlooked by elders and the past generation, sort of giving excuses and sort of brushing it off when I did raise concern.
So what could we do as a society to prevent future generations from suffering from mental illness?
So I don't think mental illness can be eradicated completely. Like people breaking their legs will always happen. Like no, we can't stop people from breaking their legs. So I think mental health issues will always be there. However, I think that we can raise awareness and make it clear that it's okay not to be okay, and just because we have mental health issues or we have problems, it doesn't mean that's the end of the world, and it does get better and there is help available, and a lot of people go through it more than you think. So don't beat yourself up about it. And we can use social media. Social media has been a massive key in this present generation raising awareness and being aware of these social issues and mental health issues. So if we carry on using technology in a positive way, we can make a real difference.
Earlier on, we spoke to Adam, but now we're going to talk to him about his studies and how it affected him growing up.
I wish when I was younger, I wish I didn't feel as much pity as I did when I was younger. So when I was in education, I always thought, oh, my dad's ill, I've got issues with my brother, I've got issues with my sister, I've got issues with my mom. I wish I didn't have that all in my mind all the time when I was doing work, because sometimes when I was at college or school, I just used to think, I'm excused because I've got all these issues. It doesn't really matter if I don't perform that well, everyone will understand. I used to miss a lot of college. I used to come into college late. It made me quite manipulative when I was younger. But yeah, as I grew older, I started learning that that's not acceptable. You can't make yourself a victim all the time. And everyone goes through those kind of struggles, so yeah.
We got a chance to have a discussion with Adam and his mother to ask, is depression a hidden illness in Asian communities, where she can give her verdict how it was in the past generation and the current generation we live in now.
Hi, my name is Adam, and this is...
I'm Adam's mum, and I've been asked to give an interview, and I'm giving it on hidden illnesses, and I think more close to home because I've gone through it. I think
So do you think in general there's an issue about depression and the stigma when it comes to Asian communities?
I never used to. I used to think that it's illness, can't be seen. So, like it's not their fault. But my husband's got depression. So I came out with it loud that my husband's got depression, so that when he goes out and everything, people understand. But I found out that there was stigma attached to it. And now I think a lot of people are coming out with it.
Do you discuss it with Adam about your husband's issues and stuff?
No, I didn't. They didn't even know until
No.
he was, until he actually had a breakdown.
At a young
I didn't
age, I just thought it was
We
something
just-
completely different.
So you
He just
probably
used to
thought
think that it was
normal.
temper or
Oh,
just
yeah.
normal, because they are completely normal. It's just that you can't see the illness, and you have to know a lot about the illness before you can live with it. There's a very, very fine line between being well and being unwell.
Yeah.
Because there are real issues in their life that are giving them extreme stress, and they don't know when they've lost the balance of reality.
Like, do you think mental health has more of a concern right now than it was in the past? So like, say with the technology, people are more aware of like
There
getting
is more
information.
awareness.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because of like social media apps like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, there are people constantly
Yeah.
talking about their issues. There
And I
are
think
more
it's
people.
more open now and more accepted.
It's more
Yes.
accepted, but there's more people that can talk to other people. Like, they don't need to go for therapy if they can't get into therapy, or they don't have the willpower to go to therapy. They can just talk to a random person online.
So do you think it's easier to do that and then go to a professional and ask for help? Or
I think professionals is more effective.
Depends on what the severity is of the depression.
So
if
how-
it's mild to
so when do you
sort of
think is
know.
like the best time to go to professional?
I think it's
when you first
as soon as it starts, I think it's
we
the best.
have been through it, so we know the signs.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't even know that they're staying with a depressed person
It's
until
hard to
they
diagnose.
have a breakdown. They haven't got a clue.
Mm.
So as soon as it's been diagnosed, professionals,
So
because they give them the best normal life they can have.
so do you think in the Asian communities depression was always there but there wasn't a real term for
Of
it?
course,
Yeah.
of course, they didn't want to accept it because they used
I
to
don't-
lock them away. They never used to let them talk.
I don't think it was about I just don't think they knew it existed.
It does.
No, but it
They
does.
knew, but there's a lot of stigma
It
attached
does,
to it.
but because
And because it's hereditary,
because they're so
It's
uneducated,
very-
Mom. Because we have a better education
Yeah.
now. Before, and how the traditional mentality is, they didn't understand it better. Now we understand it a lot more. Even though it's still in Asian communities, there's
still a
still a
big taboo.
stigma. Yeah. Now
But,
it's more acceptable.
see, I
Like
think
our grandparents, would they understand it as good as we do?
no, they don't.
Why do you
Even
think
though
that
they
is?
have someone that has a mental illness.
Mental illness is such that they think, because they look so normal, that they think that they're pretending.
Yeah.
Like if somebody told you that there's soldiers behind the curtains, you're not going to believe it because you're going to think, what waffles, right?
Yeah.
But the person who's depressed actually can see soldiers, and that's what people need to understand, that to them it's very, very real, and the person who's looking after them needs to know about the depression as well,
So-
about the illness as well.
So someone like from a young age going through depression, like what would your first advice be to them?
Go to a professional.
Yeah.
I really think that it's even if it's just going through stresses of teenage or whatever, it's better to talk to a counsellor or somebody where you can get help and you get proper help.
Ask yourself this: is depression a hidden illness in Asian communities or any other communities? And this has been Riaz Adam trying to raise awareness. I would like to give a special thank you to Adam and his family for allowing us all into their lives, and everyone else who has allowed me to interview them. A special thank you goes to Kamaldeep for helping me out with the filming.